good morning, good afternoon, depending where you are. Narcissistic relationships. If you are in a relationship with a narcissist, or if you are otherwise in some form of entanglement where you are supplying them, then you are part of their assembly line. You are a component to supply them. You are there to help them meet their needs. They are not there to help you meet your needs. They are not there to supply you, although at the beginning it may seem that way, either because they're investing in you to get you hooked or because they're future faking you. And from the moment the narcissist gets you hooked and focused on them, they are now dependent on your energy to keep them going. You are the gas that keeps them fueled. You are an essential component to their well-functioning. Because narcissists, they're not naturally resourceful. They don't naturally bring out resources from internally to help them feel energized, to help them feel happy, to help them feel purposeful. Instead, they rely on other people to uplift their ego, other people to serve as their oompa loompa to help them get their needs met. And just to know that someone depends on them is hugely validating. And once the narcissist has you as their supply, they don't want to lose you. Not if you've been good supply. Most people who are on these forums watching videos about narcissistic abuse or reading about it on places like Quora, they're doing that because they were actually good supply at some point. But you shouldn't take that as a compliment. Believe me. It just shows that you are as broken as they are, but in a whole different way. You may not be a bad person, but you still have to work on yourself. Narcissists, they like to know that their supply system is well functioning, that they are not at risk of being badly regulated. And to self-regulate, they need people like you. They need people who give more than they take. They need people who have a self-sacrificing nature. They need people who can put up with a lot of abuse and just won't run away, but will stick around thinking, oh, maybe I deserve this. Maybe there's something wrong. So I'm going to try to prove to the person that I'm more worthy than they think. Or some people might just associate that feeling of abuse with love because that's all they've known. Like I said, if you're with a narcissist, you're broken in your own way. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. It just means you're broken. But people who are not sadistic in nature, they can be fixed and they can be healed, at least to a large extent. But what happens when the narcissist all of a sudden sees that their source of supply, the pipe that connects you to them, your source flows towards them, your energy flows towards them, when all of a sudden that flow starts slowing down, when you all of a sudden stop caring, when all of a sudden they're no longer the focal point of your attention, well, of course, the narcissist panics. They panic because they don't know how they're going to get their needs met. There are not many people like you out there. It's hard work to get somebody you quite literally and metaphorically in their pipeline. So, of course, when they put all that work out there and they start to lose you, they start panicking. They start going in mental overdrive, wondering how they can fix you. Of course, they're always entertaining other new potential supply sources, but that's always difficult. It's always difficult to find somebody who's a steady supply source toward the narcissist despite all the red flags in their abuse. You're fulfilling a role that not many people out there will fulfill, and that's why narcissists are more dependent on you than they will let themselves admit. And certainly they don't want you to know. Over time, when you realize you're dealing with a narcissist, if it's in a relationship, you should break up, go away. But if it's in some other capacity, maybe family or some other capacity, you should just stop caring about them. I mean, you can always care about them from afar, wish them the best, but not physically and actively caring about them, because basically you're being their bitch. Because you're not in a healthy interaction with them. But that's where you should try to get to. is that point where you realize you cannot fix them, you cannot help them. Leave them to their own devices. Narcissists can only ever improve for the better when they stop having people who enable them. And that's what you've been. An enabler. Unfortunately, wishing the best and actively sacrificing yourself for the narcissist is enablement. And that's what many people struggle to accept. And that's exactly why narcissists in this world can survive. Because they go after the so-called good-hearted people, but the good-hearted people in that particular dynamic means they can keep doing what they're doing. So you should realize that and think, you know what? I'm not going to be exhausted by the narcissist anymore. Instead, I'm going to attribute my caring nature, my humane nature into a more noble, healthy cause. And that's what you should do. But when you stop caring about the narcissist because you've shifted onto other things, maybe you're shifting your attention onto your kids to make sure they have a good upbringing. Maybe you're shifting your attention to your job to progress your career so you can provide more to your kids, your family. Maybe you're seeking out your personal interests, your health. Well, the narcissist panics, of course, because all of a sudden they're not the focal point of your world. But narcissists must feel like the focal point of your world. Because they don't self-validate, they don't self-regulate. And for them, having somebody being nice to them from time to time, that kind of courteous interaction, that's not enough. They need somebody who's fully devoted to them, even though they give nothing of real value in return. So yeah, narcissists can panic. They can start losing their shit, right? When you start detaching, both emotionally and in terms of your physical interactions with them. But they soon double down thinking, how can they win you back, or how can they bring you back in before you detach too far? And that's why they're often future fake. If you're in a relationship with one, let's say you always wanted to get married and they never did, this is when they'll all of a sudden buy you the most expensive diamond ring and propose to you. And not only would they want to get married, have a big event, they'll be talking about your honeymoon together in some exotic place that you've always wanted to go to. That's just an example. Maybe if you wanted kids, all of a sudden they never did. All of a sudden now they want kids. I mean, they'll double down and they'll promise you the dream. Or they might try to somehow threaten you if they fear you're detaching them, to see if it'll reel you back in. They can get quite creative. Don't underestimate them. But be aware of it. All you have to do is ignore, softly ignore. Little does more harm to the narcissist than when you softly ignore them, because they're not feeding off you. Narcissists are prone to panicking when they're not getting their needs met, or when they fear somebody who they need is stepping away. But that doesn't mean you should care about that. You should step away, you should refocus, and you should not keep them as the center point of your world, because that's what they want. Narcissists are all about making sure people are the center point of their world. So learn not to give a crap about them. Wish them well from afar, but don't physically supply them. And let them just kind of float away. You do the same. And if there's any attempt at them trying to come back to you, just ignore it. Because if you do entertain them again, you'll probably end up regretting it. But of course, don't take my word for it. Thanks for watching.